Good morning. Let us continue our discussion. So before we get into the discussion of this class, what were we discussing in the last class? Can one of you quickly bring in few of the points that we have discussed in the last class? Quick inputs are the points that we discussed in the last class.
So we have seen the importance of ReLU activation function, where the sigmoid activation function fails to give the appropriate results for the deep neural networks,
right?
Because of its diminishing behavior in updating the weights.
Right, very good. So one main aspect that we have seen is if we take a deep neural network where we have actually sigmoid activation function, or the derivative of sigmoid activation function or activation function coming several times, we see that if we use sigmoid activation function, it has the diminishing gradients problem that can be overcome by the ReLU activation function. Now we have seen explicitly the derivative of sigmoid activation function, and then we have seen in the context of deep neural networks what is its limitation, and we introduced ReLU activation function. Fine. So let me share the screen. So in this class, let us see very briefly on the ReLU activation function. Then let us move on to the loss functions. Once previously we have discussed about multi-class SVM loss function. We also discussed about cross entropy loss function. So to effectively apply cross entropy loss function, what we need is one more step before the pre-final layer. That is soft max layer or soft max function. So that we will discuss. And we will see the differences between the multi-class SVM loss and the cross entropy loss a little bit. And then we will also discuss subsequently on the regularization. That's very important in training or learning of the neural networks. Okay, that's what we discuss in this class. So just to take a little forward on what we have discussed in the last class, we have seen that we have the, if we use sigmoid activation function, we have the limitation of gradients less than 0.25 in fact for each of the at each of the layer when back propagating. Gradient update is proportional to 1/4 at each of the layer, and then as many times as we have the layers, it will be 0.25 power those many, and hence the diminishing gradients problem is very prominent. But if we have a activation function whose f dash is greater than 1, then what will happen? So this is the problem of diminishing gradients with the sigmoid activation. But however, if we have any function f dash, okay, with f dash greater than 1, what do you think will happen? Any quick answer? If f dash is greater than 1, for example, what may happen?
Gradient will explode.
Gradients, yeah,
Increase.
gradients will explode. The reason is you will be multiplying a quantity greater than 1 for several times, and hence the gradients, the delta W will be very, very high, okay, in the initial layers. And it doesn't appropriately counter for proper update of the weights. So essentially, so the only choice now we have is the gradient close to 1 or very close to 1 or 1 itself. So that can be achieved through ReLU activation function, as we have seen in the last class. So now let us see a little bit on the small variants of the ReLU activation function and ReLU activation function, and then move on to the discussion on different loss functions and so on. So as we did, how did we define the ReLU activation function? F of net, we have defined it as max of 0, net. Okay, at a given layer. This can be a scalar or a vector, as I said. Okay, if it is a vector, it is max applies on element wise between 0 and the value, the other value, right? And this, if you see a graph between net value, okay, and f of net value, considering scalar, okay, how does it look like? So let us plot with another color. Up to 0, If the net value is less than 0, then the result of f of net is 0. And if it is greater than 0, it is linear. Okay. So this is what is f of net. Okay. And hence the derivative of f, if you see, say f dash net is equal to what? How should we write the derivative? Quick answer. How should I write the derivative? 1. How should we write? Net greater than 0. Okay, if it is scalar. If it is vector also, okay, 1 net greater than 0. Okay, this
net
1 is 1 wherever the net value is greater than 0. Corresponding element of net value is greater than 0. Hope this is visible. Right? So now what there are, this is rectified linear unit activation. There are actually a small variations of this. See what we are doing here, all the negative, say if we have a neural network. So what we are essentially doing is all the negative values of this net values here, we are suppressing. All the positive values we are putting as it is. That is what we are doing through ReLU activation function. So any of the, say net values are the, say weighted sum of the inputs. Okay, greater than being 0 will go as it is. If they become less than 0, they will be suppressed. That's how it's happening at every layer. Okay, so the other activation function, that is slight variant of this, is referred to as leaky ReLU. What it does is, instead of completely suppressing the negative values, see, why, do you have any intuition why the negative values are suppressed and so on?
Because the maximum value is 0.
Maximum value, that's fine. See, if I apply function like this, then it will suppress fine. But what is the intuition in suppressing one side of the values or negative values?
Like they are insignificant features, so they can be neglected.
What's that? Can you repeat?
If the net value is small or negative, they correspond to negligible features. So which don't
but
contribute
negative
as much
value can be high value, right? Not necessarily say small value. -10 or even higher. See, if we bring in one analysis, if we bring in this as correlation, we are looking only positive side of the correlation. Okay, between the weight elements or the weight vector and the input. Similarly, the weight vector here and the features. Okay, and if the correlation is greater than 0 or the positive side, we are allowing. On the negative side of the correlation, we are suppressing. Okay, that's one kind of thought. And if this happens consistently, we are following in a direction to align the weight values with respect to the inputs and features. Right? So that's one kind of consideration. But however, having the weight values, having the non-linearity in this f of net is very important. Why non-linearity is required? If we don't have non-linearity, what may happen? Any inputs? Why we say, why don't we consider simply linear activation function instead of ReLU and so on?
Depends on the model.
Yeah, that's fine. But why not it is a trivial choice? Why unnecessary we are discussing all this? See, if we have linearity at all the neurons, okay, what is the limitation of that neural network? See, the discussion of neural networks and the activation function started where?
Approximating the non-linear functions.
Yeah. So essentially, if the samples are not linearly separable, then what we said, we may need a nonlinear decision boundary. Okay. So to separate the both class samples. In such cases, are multiple decision boundaries. Okay, to have that, we said nonlinearity is very important. If we don't have nonlinearity, this whole thing becomes a linear function, is it not? So, and this is a reasonably complex linear function, but still a linear function. Okay, so in that case, you will not be able to put either nonlinear decision boundary or like non-linearly separable samples can be classified with them. Okay, that's the limitation. For that, we have said that the nonlinearity is very important in activation function. And then we started with this. Fine? Correct or not?
Yes, sir.
Right. So now let us see, but this first ReLU activation function, as we have seen, it completely suppresses the negative correlations or completely suppresses the net value being negative. So in the one variant of it is leaky ReLU, where what we do is we try to suppress the negative values, but not to the extent that we suppress in the ReLU activation function. Yeah.
Sir, a small question.
Yes, ask.
Yeah, so in the ReLU activation function plot, we can see that it's a piece linear function because there is a line and after that also it's a line. So
right.
Will that be enough to actually mimic nonlinearity?
Yeah, fine. Okay, so it's enough to mimic the nonlinearity if we consider, say, this is a reasonably nonlinear function, right? See, for example, what we are doing, all the values less than 0, we are mapping to 0 here. It's a reasonable nonlinearity. Is it enough means we are applying at several neurons, right? So probably that is taken care of. It's not just at one neuron and at one layer. So we are applying at several layers, this function. So that is reasonably taken care of. That too, ReLU activation function is more suggested or widely applied for a deep neural networks. So I think in that way it is justifiable. For a shallow networks, still the sigmoid activation function may perform better or maybe a good option. The limitation for the sigmoid activation function is the diminishing gradients problem that occurs only in deep neural networks. And there the ReLU activation function comes into picture and plays a good role.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, fine. So this is ReLU activation function where we have actually here in positive side, the slope is directly net value. And the negative side, what is this? Alpha times the net value. Alpha may be like very small value. Okay, so a small value than 1. So it is max of. So we can write this as net for net greater than 0. And alpha times net for net less than 0. Where alpha is less than 1. So this is how the leaky ReLU function is defined. So we can, if net is positive, this is the one, and net is negative, this is the one. So there is another variant of ReLU activation function that is referred to as elastic ReLU. So the leaky ReLU, the advantage is that we are not suppressing completely the negative correlations. In that sense, there may be a, say, if we feel that the results can also, the net values will be more appropriately decided. If we have the positive and negative values in the subsequent layers, then this is a better option. See, for example, in some of the image processing problems, we know that the result or the final result that we wish to get is positive. So there it may not be ReLU activation function may be fine. But in some cases, we need to oscillate between learning has to happen with both positive and negative outputs, and then it has to bring in the final solution. So in such cases, probably leaky ReLU may be more apt. And I think this is the design consideration. Mostly people use ReLU itself, but in some cases, leaky ReLU can also be seen or experimented and seen. The other one is instead of linearly dropping or linearly having the slope in the negative region, having a non-linear slope or a saturation kind of thing in the negative region. So that is elastic ReLU.
Sir, one doubt in leaky ReLU.
Yeah, please ask.
Sir, shouldn't alpha be in between 0 and 1? Because you have taken it from -1 to 1.
Oh, sorry. Correct. It is 0 and 1. No, it's positive. Correct. Yeah. Right. It is strictly in between 0 and 1. Correct. Yeah, thank you. So in elastic ReLU, what we wish to do is we would like to have a constant if it is at -infinity and then go smoothly like this. So usually smooth activation functions are more welcome, as you know. So and then this elastic ReLU in some sense brings closer to smooth variation between the positive and negative regions, okay, of the variation of F. So this in definition, F of net, we define it as anyway net for net greater than 0. Okay, and then this is, say we can consider it as e power x, e power net -1. So what's the value of e power net? Since net value is negative, so if it is -infinity, for example, at net value being -infinity, it is e power -infinity, it is 0. So it is -1. And then this is alpha times. We will not take completely it as 1. So alpha again here also 0 to 1. So and then for net less than 0, this is the value. So this is negative, but it saturates after a while, and near 0 it is slightly, say it is small value, and then after after a bit of negative values of net, it saturates and close to 0. E power minus net will be 0, and then this will be minus alpha. So this value will be minus alpha in saturation. So this is how it will be. So the difference between this and this is that we don't go linearly. So as we increase the net value to very large, this you can see that this will tend to be again infinity or very large. But however, this doesn't happen here. So these are the variations of ReLU activation function. However, mostly ReLU directly will be used. In some cases, you can experiment and see with this other possibilities as well. Now let us resume the discussion that we had on the loss functions. So what did we discuss during the previous discussion about multi-class SVM loss function? So if we have a classifier, okay, we said we get finally scores here. Okay, S1 to SC. Assume that we have C class classification problem. Okay, I'm just for simplicity, I'm considering a linear classifier, simple classifier. Even if we have more layers, okay, non-linear classifier, at the output layer, we have the scores. Okay, and now these scores can be in the range anywhere from -infinity to infinity. So in fact, they can go from -infinity to infinity. Okay, so now how did we define multi-class SVM class function? Any of you remember? If I give input sample as xi, okay, I am giving the input sample with I being the index of the sample, and sk is the score I am getting, or sj is the score I am getting for the jth output neuron. So in that case, how did we define the multi-class SVM loss function? Did any of you remember?
This score should be greater than all other SAM score. SJ should be greater than.
Yes. So SYI, okay, it has to be greater than SJ for all J, okay, and then we can, considering margin, we said SJ, SYI, the correct output neuron score has to be greater than all other scores for all J. And this, if it doesn't happen, that incurs to loss. And then how did we define the loss? So for the ith sample as input, what is the loss we defined? Yi being the label of ith sample. What do I mean by label of ith sample? Can you get a better intuition? What do we mean by label of ith sample? Yi will be equal to, say, if xi in digit classification, if xi equal to, say, digit 5, okay, then yi will be equal to what? What?
It's a 0, 0, 0, 1. At fifth location, it will be 1.
Yeah, it is 1 at, actually, it is fifth location. So it is 1 at, so I would say it is 6. If I just directly write the labels without one hot encoding, okay, so it will yi equal to 6, okay, or yi equal to 1 at sixth location. Fine, if with one hot encoding, that is what is yi. So now, how do I want to write? Just for index, I have written 6 here because we are writing indexes here. Okay, fine, because we are starting from 0, 1, 2, and so on. I have written 6 here, right? So now, how should I, how did we define Li for multi-class SVM loss?
Minimum of 0, Sj plus 1 minus Syi, sir.
Yeah, so it is minimum of
0,
Sj
plus 1 minus Svy.
Right. So when this is higher than this, so the intuition is when this is higher than this, okay, there is a loss. And with margin, we are considering, and there is a loss, and this is the loss. And this loss is positive when this is higher than this. Okay, otherwise there is no loss. If this itself is higher than this, there is no loss. Okay. And if it is positive, then only we are considering it as loss. If it is negative, we don't want to bring into the loss. It's fine. Okay, we don't want to bother about it. This is how Li is defined. And if we have actually the several samples, then it is Li as summation over I 1 to n, where n is the number of samples. Okay, this we have seen. So we will see some of the, say, how this loss behaves in multi-class classification scenarios. Few of the aspects of analyzing this, how this loss behaves. Okay, before we get into this, let us also discuss it about the in the multi-class scenarios, how do we define explicitly the cross entropy loss? See, to define cross entropy loss, what do we need? At the output, to define the cross entropy loss, what do we need at the output? Assume that again here also we have scores, S1 to SC. Okay, we only have the scores now. So, but to define cross entropy loss, what do we need?
Probabilities, sir.
Yeah, we need the probabilities. Okay, so we need to get Qi. So corresponding to ith neuron, or say ith output class. So what And then we have actually ground truth probabilities, PI. Okay, ground truth probabilities. And then probability at ith neuron. Based on this, we can define the cross entropy loss. So how do we get from scores to the probabilities is a question. What we need is probability that, okay, the jth neuron, fine, belongs to YI class. So this is what we need, or YJ belongs to YI. Sorry. Probability that given Xi sample, okay, what is that it belongs to the YJ. So that's what we want to see. The probability that, say, this has to be converted to a probability of PI or the corresponding class PJ. Since we are denoting the output neurons with index J, we want to see the probability that the Xi sample belongs to YJ class. Okay, so Xi sample belonging to YJ class. So I will write probability of YJ given Xi. Fine. So how should we get the probabilities from this course is a question. Usual procedure for getting the probabilities from this course is through softmax function. So what we do in softmax function is we just want to see a kind of normalization to map this course to probabilities. Okay. So how do we write this softmax function is e power yj by e power yj summation over, or we can write here k, because this index j is for a particular neuron we are considering. K is a general index. K equal to 1 to what? Summation over 1 to c. Okay, so for all neurons we are summing. And since it is in the denominator, we just want to make sure that this value is not 0. Okay, and we added epsilon. So what is this? This is proportional to each of the output neurons. What are the probabilities? Okay, so that they belongs to YJ class or corresponding class. Okay, this we are QJ is here, Q1 to QC. Is this fine? So in case of binary cross entropy, we know that the output will be 1 only for one of the class, okay, and 0 for rest of the classes. Then we can write the binary cross entropy loss. Is this clear or not? So this is the softmax function through which we convert the, or refer to as softmax layer also, through which we convert the scores to probabilities. So why this is called softmax? We are essentially trying to see among the scores, whichever is the, say, highest score, that's what finally will be the label that we assign for Xi. Okay, but however, we are trying to convert into probabilities in some sense. Okay, and then see the probabilities after varying the scores to probabilities. Sorry, here what should we write? E power okay. Is this fine or not?
Yes.
You people are understanding? E power Sj we have to write here because we are trying to convert the scores to probabilities. Okay, is this clear? So we are considering e power Sj by summation of all scores, and that gives the probability of Xi belonging to Yj. Hope this is clear.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, how do we do classification? So we classify. So if probability of, okay, xi belongs to y, say for example, yi given xi, for example, y is a given xi is greater than or equal to probability of xi belongs to yk given xi for all k. Then we put the xi to yj class. We assign xi to yj class. Right? This is how we do the classification. Okay. So here, this is just the maximum among all this. So we see the maximum after converting the probabilities. So we want to see little bit of say a distinction between the softmax laws or the cross entropy laws. With softmax function to convert into probabilities versus the multi-class SVM laws. Okay, so here one more thing to see is, see, we have Li is the loss of the ith sample, but yet what neuron? With the jth neuron here. Okay, because for each neuron you will have one loss function. And the total loss in this case for a Lith sample is equal to summation over Lj, where j equal to 1 to c. This summation over j equal to 1 to c minimum of, sorry, max of, right? Max of 0 comma sj plus 1 minus syi. See, is this clear or not? We have at each of the neuron one loss, right, associated to say if the x is of xi is 5, then it has to belongs to 6th class. But there is a loss associated with the neuron, first neuron, second neuron, third neuron. Okay, all neurons will have associated losses. Total loss, okay, in for this sample is not just the loss at the j equal to 1. This is there for all j. Okay, the total loss for a given sample is equal to the loss for all j not taking the value of the correct label. So this put together is the loss for the softmax, like multi-class SVM loss for this sample. Is this clear or not? Any questions here? Are you able to follow?
A doubt in the softmax.
Yeah. Okay, is this clear? Multi-class SVM, is it clear?
Yes.
Yeah, in the previous discussion, we have considered only loss at a given j or given neuron. But if you want to see the total loss for a given sample, okay, we need to see the loss not only at one neuron, but also at all neurons. But when the label is of correct neuron, there is no loss. Okay, in that case, in fact, SYI and SJ are equal. In that case, we need not consider loss as 1. Instead, we can skip it in summation. Okay. So this is thus constitutes the total loss. This is fine, I hope, right? Right. So now you ask, please ask.
Yes, sir. So could you mention why you have taken e power sj, sir? And instead of
right. So what are the other ways in which we can convert these scores into probabilities? See, what essentially we want to do is we want to convert the scores to probabilities. Also, there are, like, you can consider any option, any different ways of converting scores to probabilities. So give me one possible choice or possible thing, procedure, mathematical procedure to convert into probabilities. So assume that we directly don't want to jump into this. So probability of what we want to give is Si belongs to Yj. Yj means this J can be any of these things. Okay, not necessarily the correct label. Yi. So if we, in other words, simply if we can write Y belongs to Yj instead of Yj, we can also write Jth label. Okay, Xi belongs to J given Xi. This is what we want to write from this course. So what are the other options you think?
So
Yeah, tell any other choice.
Sj by summation of Sk.
Right, very good. Sj by summation of Sj. Okay. J is equal to again 1 to or Xk, let us write. K equal to 1 to C plus epsilon. Yeah, this is also another choice. So here what we are doing is we are directly using scores to convert.
It's one kind of normalization, I think.
Yeah, it's a normalization only. But actually here it's say usually here for each small change in S variation of S. Okay, e power Sj we are bringing. So there is a big change in the probabilities. But
Sir.
linear change.
Sir, here we can't do that thing, sir, because Si, I guess, will get a negative value, right?
Correct. Si will get a negative value.
So
Correct.
probability cannot be negative.
Yeah, correct. That's also true. That is true. Yes. That's one of the main reasons why we can't directly use it like this. Correct. If we use mod, then the problem is
Overlapping regions will be there of negative and like positive side will be both given equal importance.
yeah. So it's not correct. So to take the mod, right? In fact, that's the reason why we take e power Si.
We can take a log. Here, sir.
What's that log? We can. What's the input?
Generally, we put like a minus log of probability, right?
That we take in the last function. So when we apply this cross entropy loss, log will come now.
Right, Li.
Yeah, when we want to define probability, this is the probability. We take log on the top of it for defining the loss function.
So, sir, this scores are actually the output of the cross entropy loss function, right?
No, this is actually, see, this is the softmax layer, which is converting the scores to probabilities. That's all. This has nothing to do with the loss function yet. See, if we strictly, if we want to denote this as another layer, okay, so I can denote this as another layer. What this layer is doing is, this is just a one-to-one mapping where I'm getting actually Qi, Q1 up to Qc. Okay, where this is defined as Qj. That's all. For the jth output neuron, this is the previously I had scores. So then now I am defining it to the probabilities. That's all. Nothing else we are doing. Is this clear?
Yes, sir. Actually, sir, one more question about this. If we are planning to apply cross entropy loss at the end, so we're anyways going to take the logarithm of the output. So
right.
In that case, there is no point of taking e power again, right? So because if we use softmax, we'll use e power something, and then we'll again take log. So would it be
see
like,
if you want to, but you need to convert first into probabilities, right? Oh, you mean to say that if we apply sigmoid activation function, that's what you are saying? See, for applying cross entropy loss, first we need to have actually probabilities. We can't apply on the scores because scores can be from minus infinity to infinity. Okay, you can't apply. So, and this, to apply cross entropy, you need this Qi, and then on the Qi, say we have actually loss. cross entropy loss at this output neuron for ith sample is equal to what? So if we just drop the label of ith sample, then cross entropy loss is equal to what? Summation over qi, summation over what? Pi ln of qi plus 1 minus pi ln of 1 minus qi. This is the binary cross entropy loss. Okay, we are considering that one hot encoding. So only one class will be 1 and remaining all 0. And this is with negative sign.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yeah, let us put j here because to be consistent with our notation. Okay, and j equal to 1 to c here. Right, please ask now.
Sir, as IngeSLA is classifying our sample, so why we are again going back to the cross entropy loss?
Yeah, fine. So you see, in this case, what we have only an expression converting to Q1 to QC, but we need to quantify the loss, right? See, for example, sometimes if this class is the correct label, okay, assume that. Okay, we have the values ranging from, we have the probabilities at all locations. So now assume that this is the correct class, but we got this probability is higher. Okay, so in that case, this expression helps us to classify after training. But we need to have a loss function to quantify the loss or the discrepancy in the probabilities. So how do we capture that? So if we write the QI or the probability of, or the capture the probabilities in terms of QI, okay, after converting softmax loss, we have to define a distance measure on the probabilities or a kind of similarity measure on the probabilities. What we define is a distance measure, and which distance measure we consider on the probabilities? On QI, okay, and or QJ, let us put, and then PJ, ground truth probabilities, both are PDFs. On PDFs, probability distribution functions, PI, QI, QJ, and PJ, or P and Q, in fact. Okay, what is the loss function that we use that we define? We need a distance measure. So we define what? You remember in the previous discussion we had?
Yeah, KL divergences we have seen, sir.
Yeah,
for,
KL divergence loss. And this KL divergence, KL of, okay, P given Q. Okay, this we define. And this will give us actually minus, say, P, yeah, ln of P by Q. Okay, and this results in, subsequently this results in minus of summation P, ln of P means here all Pi. Okay, so summation is over J here. So I am not explicitly writing. Minus of minus, this will be plus. Also, is minus sign here? You see. Hope, I think no minus sign here, but come here. Right, and we take the first term anyway is constant. For this is because the ground truth is PI is fixed, and second term is what we minimize. Right, from here we got the cross entropy loss, binary cross entropy loss. Okay, and here binary cross entropy loss needs probabilities, QJs, that we get through softmax layer. Is this clear?
Okay, sir.
Yeah, fine, good. So that's very good point. In fact, Sj is from minus infinity infinity. So we can't directly take them and create the probabilities. So a exponential will enable us to smoothly move the corresponding over the real line from positive to negative to positive, and hence we take the exponentials. And this also helps in with small variation, for any small variation in score, will have a good change in the probabilities. Okay, that will help us to analyze or the quantify well in loss and minimize or appropriately train the network. So now let us see few aspects before we conclude on this. Say now let us put together both of them, softmax loss and then the cross entropy loss. Sorry, multi-class SVM loss and the cross entropy loss. This was with softmax function. So let us bring in softmax function itself here. Also, instead of bringing cross entropy loss. So here we have written Li is equal to, for any ith sample, let us bring in this itself as L. So anyway, we are considering only for single sample in both cases. Summation over J over all neuron, J equal to 1 to C, J not equal to Yi, correct label, max of 0, what, Sj plus 1 minus Sy. We initially have scores, and based on that, we are writing either softmax function or the multi-class SVM loss function. Okay, here we have is equal to, we don't have L directly, we write the probabilities here. Belongs to J, jth class given Xi, e power Sj by e summation Sj plus. Right. So now what we want to see is, we want to see, yeah, anyways, with softmax function and cross entropy loss also let us write. There are some things that we discuss about the function and something about the loss. So then we have actually summation Qj, sorry, Pj ln of Qj, J equal to 1 to C. So let us bring in just the cross entropy, not binary cross entropy. So we just had Pj and ln of Qj summation. So this essentially, if we consider them as if there is only one correct class label, this will consider the other case as well. So now assume that we want to see, what we want to see in this is, let us see in the next class, but let us see what we want to see with this. So we want to see, when we initialize randomly, what are the values of loss? Okay, on random initialization. So what L value is in both cases. This is one thing we want to see. Second thing we want to see is, what are the range of L in both cases. Third thing we want to see is, so for small variations in this course, how do they vary? With respect to scores. Okay, these are the three things we want to see. So first thing actually I think is very clear. Second thing is very clear. What is the range of L in both cases? Range of L in both cases. So in this case, the loss can vary from where to where? The first case. Loss can be from where to where? No answer?
Minimum 0.
Yeah, 0. Maximum? Maximum what it can be? S can be infinity, right? So it can be infinite, right? So in this case, what may happen? The probability is also, one can be infinite probability. Is it not? So if this is infinite probability, probability will be 1. So in that case, what can happen? The S can be infinite and the probability can be 1. So in that case, what can happen? The loss ln of Qi can be, say, how much? So if we have C classes, so the corresponding probability can be, say, for example, this probability can be from 0 to 1 anyway. What's the maximum value of this cross entropy loss? So this can go even up to, say, for example, see this scores, if we directly write here in terms of scores, so ln of Qi, if we write e power Si, Sj, okay, by normalization constant, okay, the normalization constant as this, okay. So, and if say this, if we write ln of e power Sj minus ln of n, okay. So this can go, say for all of them, this will be there. So what it can go? I think it can go up to minus infinity. Also, since this loss is from, again, minus sign will be there here. So minus of minus, it can also go from 0 to infinity. I suggest you people to check once. Okay, but both loss can go from minus infinity to infinity. Because this, the other term, numerator term, or the denominator, this can be very small compared to the denominator term. In that case, this also can go to the minus infinity. This term can go to minus infinity, or ln of 0 essentially. This can go to minus infinity. Minus of minus will be positive, and hence this also can go from 0 to infinity. Okay, so the range of loss functions can go from minus infinity to 0 to infinity in both cases, right? So we will see also this and other things. These will help us to see when we train a network, okay, where we start. So this is the first initial check on, are we starting correctly or not when we initialize the weights, right? Because this neural network is a big network. We need to make a checks at each of the level of training. And this is one of the very good clue that we get to this analysis is good clue for moving forward on training of the neural networks. Fine. So if there are any quick questions, we'll take. Otherwise, it's time. We'll close the class now. Thank you.